Okay, it's time to do a follow-up on the Benchmade Bugout. I've had this knife now since right around the beginning of November, or I'm sorry, beginning of December. Um, I really, honestly, I have two main problems with this knife, and I wouldn't even go as far as to say problems because I think when you say problems, that's a strong enough word where somebody would say, "Oh, you wouldn't buy the knife." I would buy this knife again. Matter of fact, I did buy the knife again. I have another one over here sitting in the wrapper. Not even you can see the sticker's still on here. So I did buy this knife twice. This knife is waiting on some Rogue Blade Works scales. That's a whole nother story. Keep hearing great things about the scales, but if you read their feedback on their Etsy store and what I've experienced, their customer service leaves a lot to be desired. And let's just say I would take their timelines with a grain of salt. But back to the knife. My two gripes about the knife, about this knife here, would be this clip, and it's basically it's physics. Because this clip is so short, you can't get a lot of leverage on the edge of this clip, so it's very, very, very stiff. So there are only two different things that you can do, and that's going to be to either take the clip off or bend it up, either way you see fit, and relieve some of that tension. Or every time you put it in your pocket, you're going to have to grip it kind of like this, and you're going to have to lift up on that clip and slip it over your pocket. Otherwise, you will not be able to get this knife into your pocket, or at least I have not been able to get the knife into my pocket. The other thing is the price, and I know that's been on the top of everybody's list. At $115, I don't think that's the price that I would love to pay for this knife. With that being said, I think a price of $99.99 or $99.95, I think that would make a lot of people a lot more happy. I think that would be a lot more pleasing to people aesthetically. Now, with that being said, I think it's one of those optical illusions, those mental games. What's the difference between $99.95 and $114.95 if you have $100 in disposable income to pick up something you don't need to begin with? So, with that being said, I prefer to buy this knife under $100, and there are a few ways to do that. This particular knife I picked up on eBay, and I picked it up from Robert's Camera. He was running a sale at the time for $95, I believe. So I picked this up without any headaches, hassles, or anything like that for $95. And you can see here, perfect centering. I haven't done anything to it out of the box besides add a drop or two of nano oil to the action here. The other knife I bought from DLT, and that knife I actually ended up using some of my rewards points from some of my other purchases. So that was how I got that knife down under $100. I know one person I talked to said they were going to get theirs off of Amazon, and I believe DLT sells on Amazon, and they were going to use some of their Amazon points through DLT, their Amazon store, to buy the knife, and then that would have brought it down under $100. I think at $100, you're going to be happy with this knife. One of the main things that I've heard about this knife, and I can't personally get this to be a problem for me. It's these handle scales, and you can see here, I hope you can see here, that there's only metal up to this point, and it's not metal from top to bottom. It's just basically the part that holds the Omega springs and the blade tang, and that's really about it. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, but that knife, it flexes and it's going to break, or it feels like it's going to break, it's flimsy, this, that, and the other. Now, mind you, I'm not in the mindset, even though this is called the Bugout, I don't believe that this is a knife that I'm going to go out into the wilderness with and live for, some extended period of time with just this knife. I mean, look at this blade stock. No, the handles are not reinforced with any metal. But like I said, I'm grabbing this thing, I'm twisting this thing, I'm doing everything I can, and I've got 4-inch hands from here to here. 220 some odd pounds. I'm 6'2". I could squeeze this knife. I could twist this knife. There are videos on YouTube of people batoning through wood with this knife. I wouldn't suggest that, but it still closes just fine. The centering is still just fine after all that stuff that I just showed you, and the knife is not broken. So do I think that personal preference, you could say, I don't like the feel of this knife. This knife feels very light. It feels very cheap, if you want to use that word, inexpensive, not substantial. I could understand that, but all the fear that I keep hearing about this being a flimsy handle in the sense that it's going to break, I think that's being a little disingenuous. The other thing that I don't get with all that talk is, and this goes back to the Bugout conversation, I think that they use the catchphrase to market this knife to get eyes on it and get it sold. Look at the blade stock. This is just a regular United States nickel. Everybody has a nickel. If you don't, you can find one. Look at this. This blade stock isn't much thicker than this nickel. What are you really going to be, and the tip is even finer than that. What are you really going to be beating on with a knife that has a blade stock as thick as a nickel, or as thin as a nickel, I guess maybe I should say, that these handles are going to fail on you before this blade will? Just food for thought. Another thing that I heard was this finger guard here, the Benchmade finger guard, makes it feel like you're very far away from the edge of the knife. Now, I never really noticed that until that comment was made to me, but I do try to take everything in, and I try to, see, if that is an issue, if that is a problem. I don't think that all of this sharpening choil was necessary, and I think that that's what makes you feel a little bit further back from the blade. But now, with that being said, I never noticed it until somebody mentioned it to me. When someone said it, I do notice it, but 9 times out of 10, I'm using this portion of the blade out here. Now, that's another thing that I will say. With this knife coming in at, I believe it's 3.25 inches overall, I don't think that I would want this knife any longer, because with it being 3.25 inches, I feel like it's getting a little bit out there, and that tip is a little bit harder to control. So I think that the knife length is about as long as I would like to see it. The other thing is this jimping here is not very aggressive, but again, I don't believe that this knife is a true Bugout type knife. So I'm not looking for a knife with crazy heavy jimping or anything like that. And also, just for me, with my larger hands, something that I would like to see more knives do, I really would like my jimping out on the blade. This is where my thumb is going to be at. It's not going to be way back here. It's going to be out here. So those are a few of the things. I sharpened the knife. I believe the final grit was 600 grit. And it is 15 degrees on either side for a 30 degree inclusive inclusive edge. The knife is held up well, no chips, no rolls, no anything like that. Like I said, the action is broken in with the few drops of nano oil I put on here. I just really, for anybody that wants a knife that's going to handle just day-to-day basic light to medium duty tasks, I find it hard to fault this knife. This is really a knife that I didn't even want this knife. I'll tell you how I came across this knife. I was working out a trade for a traditional knife, and the guy said he wanted one of these and he would trade me the knife if I bought one of these for him, or if I had one and I would trade it. I told him no problem, I'll buy one and I'll send it to you. So that's how I had seen the knife, but that's how I really became aware of the knife. I haven't been let down with my purchase. I wish there was something that I could say, it was just awful. I don't know how they could do that. Like I said, I know I've heard a lot about Benchmade fit and finish. Again, you saw how much I smashed and bent and turned and tweaked these scales. It's centered, and this is not one that was handpicked. This is someone from somebody named Rob's Camera. So this is not a handpicked knife. You can see here, for what it's worth, the bevel grinds, the edges are pretty even, maybe a little bit wider on this side, but I don't see anything here that makes me just go, wow, the fit and finish is horrible on that knife. Like I said, I bought it so much. I like it so much that I bought a second one. Really, I just think this is a good knife overall. Again, if you're looking for something to do medium to light tasks, I wouldn't do a lot of batoning or anything that's going to be maybe like cutting through zip ties. I don't think anything that's going to apply lateral force to this knife is going to be good. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.